Hello again, folks. Good evening. You must be getting really sick of these videos. I'm sorry. Talk to Kratz. He's the one who has like a gigantic case file from hell. Um, Now, I finished up Ryan Hilligoss's testimony from the trial. And again, I'll put the link at the bottom in the description, along with the page number that his testimony starts on. Now, in the second part of his testimony, I noticed that they started talking to him about Pamela Sturm and, what happened with all of that. And this is what gets me. Ryan and Teresa dated for 5 years. 5 years. Pamela Sturm is Teresa Halbach's cousin. They dated for 5 years, and the first time he ever met Pam Sturm was on the morning that she discovered the car. In my area, I can understand that. I've never met my mother-in-law. I've never met a good portion of my husband's family, and he hasn't met a good portion of mine because we're spread out all over the damn place. But we're talking about a upper middle class white family from fucking Wisconsin, a state that would be a pimple on the ass of my state. So how the fuck did they date for 5 years and never meet? Anybody else find that a little weird? And then Ryan testifies that Pam came over and basically just came right out with, well, has anybody thought to search the Avery property? Why would you think to ask that, Pam? Now, I'm going to cover Pam's testimony here in another video in the very near future, but I just wanted to put that out there. Now, the Sunday following the discovery of Teresa Halbach's car, they said that they started to walk through areas of land near the Avery property. Why? Why would you search specifically around the Avery property? I mean, I can understand to a degree because that is where the car was found, but it's a fucking salvage yard. Where would you hide a car that you were trying to get rid of? And he does admit, however, to searching the Avery property itself on that Sunday. What else did you put there, Ryan? The point that really stuck with me, though, is that Teresa Halbach's roommate at the time was Ryan's best friend at the time. Apparently, by the time the trial came about, they were no longer best friends. Now, look, folks, my best friend in the world and I have frequently lived very far apart from each other. We have, had our little ups and downs, but she has been my best friend for the better part of 20 years now. We've never just been like, oh yeah, we used to be best friends. Why aren't you best friends anymore, Ryan? Is it because he's got a guilty conscience and you're a fucking sociopath? But what really gets me is that at the time, they were best friends. And yet, Ryan cannot recall when his best friend moved into his ex-girlfriend's house. I'm sorry, but I don't care how over a relationship I am. I would remember some shit like that. And isn't it kind of like a bro code thing that when your best friend moves, you help? Just saying. And what really got me, and I'm sure it got a lot of you, was that he couldn't remember what time of day it was the last time he saw Teresa. So you can't remember if it was early in the morning right after your fucking morning wood or after lunch or, it was already dark out? Seriously? How old are you, Ryan? Because, your memory's not supposed to be going that far this young. Ugh. And what really stuck with me was that Scott and Ryan were interviewed together. When a person goes missing, they always look at the first person, the closest people to her. In this case, it would have been the ex-boyfriend. That's suspicious right there. And the roommate, especially a male roommate. But they were interviewed together. And he only told the police that he was her friend. He didn't mention at the initial speaking with police that they had dated. Why omit that, Ryan? That's kind of important in a missing persons case. Yeah, I'm her ex-boyfriend. We've stayed friends, but I'm her ex. Real fucking simple. Doesn't even hurt. I promise. Probably hurt her though, didn't it? You prick. And to reply to that questioning by defense counsel Buting, he says, it came out eventually. I just didn't feel that it mattered. What else didn't you feel mattered about Teresa? How about her humanity? Buting then asks him if the police ever asked Scott if he and Teresa were ever intimately involved. And Kratz objects, citing relevance and investigative bias. I've noticed this when reading some of the trial transcripts. Kratz seems to be a whiny bitch. He objects for every little fucking thing. And I've seen attorneys that behave like that. It's a trial strategy. They object to every little thing because they're hoping to throw you off. That's just a dirty trick, Kratz. If you can't win the case on the merits of your case, then, maybe your case sucks. Ryan was never asked for an alibi. He was never asked as to his whereabouts. What the fuck, folks? That's just weird. That's just odd to me. Now, I'm going to read to you a little bit of transcript from when Ryan Hillegas appeared on the Nancy Grace program. And it's like the last question she asks him. She asks him, how did it hit you when you realized it was her DNA, the DNA match made up to a prior doctor's exam she'd recently had? And Ryan replies, and I quote, well, I guess it's, we've all been expecting things like this. And, of course, the more news we get, the harder it gets. But I think the important part now, is that the judiciary committees and everybody can, go through the trial and get this stuff figured out and, and put whoever's to blame. Anybody else but me notice the strangeness of that verbiage, that language? He's panicking. He's fucking panicking. He's freaking out. And we've all been expecting this. I wouldn't be expecting it. I really wouldn't. And in fact, as her mother, I would be the one leading the fucking charge. I would be over there fucking hunting hell. I'd be shaking down Lucifer, finding my daughter. No. You were expecting this? I bet you weren't, Ryan, but I bet you weren't expecting this. I'm going to nail your ass. I will find out how you're connected to this. You can believe that. Thank you, folks. I will leave the descriptions and the links in the comments below, I'll leave the links in the description below. You leave comments. I leave descriptions. And we will see you soon. Thank you for watching.